The Countess Lidia Ivanovna had, as a very young and sentimental girl, been married to a wealthy man of high rank, an extremely good-natured, jovial, and extremely dissipated rake. 2 months after marriage her husband abandoned her, and her impassioned protestations of affection he met with a sarcasm and even hostility that people knowing the Count's good heart, and seeing no defects in the sentimental Lydia, were at a loss to explain. Though they were divorced and lived apart, yet whenever the husband met the wife, he invariably behaved to her with the same malignant irony, the cause of which was incomprehensible. Countess Lidia Ivanovna had long given up being in love with her husband, but from that time she had never given up being in love with someone. She was in love with several people at once, both men and women. She had been in love with almost everyone who had been particularly distinguished in any way. She was in love with all the new princes and princesses who married into the imperial family. She had been in love with a high dignitary of the church, a vicar, and a parish priest. She had been in love with a journalist, 3 Slavophiles, with Komissarov, with a minister, a doctor, an English missionary, and Karenina. All these passions, constantly waning or growing more ardent, did not prevent her from keeping up the most extended and complicated relations with the court and fashionable society. But from the time that after Karenina's trouble she took him under her special protection, from the time that she set to work in Karenina's household looking after his welfare, she felt that all her other attachments were not the real thing, and that she was now genuinely in love, and with no one but Karenina. The feeling she now experienced for him seemed to her stronger than any of her former feelings. Analyzing her feeling and comparing it with former passions, she distinctly perceived that she would not have been in love with Komissarov if he had not saved the life of the Tsar, that she would not have been in love with Ristich Kozytsky if there had been no Slavonic question, but that she loved Karenin for himself, for his lofty, uncomprehended soul, for the sweet, to her, high notes of his voice, for his drawling intonation, his weary eyes, his character, and his soft white hands with their swollen veins. She was not simply overjoyed at meeting him, but she sought in his face signs of the impression she was making on him. She tried to please him, not by her words only, but in her whole person. For his sake it was that she now lavished more care on her dress than before. She caught herself in reveries on what might have been if she had not been married and he had been free. She blushed with emotion when he came into the room. She could not repress a smile of rapture when he said anything amiable to her. For several days now Countess Lidia Ivanovna had been in a state of intense excitement. She had learned that Anna and Vronsky were in Petersburg. Alexey Alexandrovitch must be saved from seeing her. He must be saved even from the torturing knowledge that that awful woman was in the same town with him, and that he might meet her any minute. Lidia Ivanovna made inquiries through her friends as to what those infamous people, as she called Anna and Vronsky, intended doing, and she endeavoured so to guide every movement of her friend during those days that he could not come across them. The young adjutant, an acquaintance of Vronsky, through whom she obtained her information, and who hoped through Countess Lidia Ivanovna to obtain a concession, told her that they had finished their business and were going away next day. Lidia Ivanovna had already begun to calm down, when the next morning a note was brought her, the handwriting of which she recognized with horror. It was the handwriting of Anna Karenina. The envelope was of paper as thick as bark. On the oblong yellow paper there was a huge monogram, and the letter smelt of agreeable scent. Who bought it? A commissionaire from the hotel. It was some time before Countess Lidia Ivanovna could sit down to read the letter. Her excitement brought on an attack of asthma to which she was subject. When she had recovered her composure, she read the following letter in French. Madame la Comtesse, the Christian feelings with which your heart is filled give me the, I feel, unpardonable boldness to write to you. I am miserable at being separated from my son. I entreat permission to see him once before my departure. Forgive me for recalling myself to your memory. I apply to you and not to Alexey Alexandrovitch, simply because I do not wish to cause that generous man to suffer in remembering me. Knowing your friendship for him, I know you will understand me. Could you send Seryozha to me, or should I come to the house at some fixed hour? Or will you let me know when and where I could see him away from home? I do not anticipate a refusal, knowing the magnanimity of him with whom it rests. You cannot conceive the craving I have to see him, and so cannot conceive the gratitude your help will arouse in me. Anna. Everything in this letter exasperated Countess Lidia Ivanovna, its contents and the allusion to magnanimity, and especially its free and easy, as she considered, tone. Say that there is no answer, said Countess Lidia Ivanovna, and immediately opening her blotting-book, she wrote to Alexey Alexandrovitch that she hoped to see him at 1 o'clock at the levee. I must talk with you of a grave and painful subject. There we will arrange where to meet. Best of all, at my house, where I will order tea, as you like it. Urgent. He lays the cross, but he gives us strength to bear it, she added, so as to give him some slight preparation. Countess Lidia Ivanovna usually wrote some 2 or 3 letters a day to Alexey Alexandrovitch. She enjoyed that form of communication, which gave opportunity for a refinement and air of mystery not afforded by their personal interviews. End of chapter 23.